shellfish. I believe we can get going. So welcome everybody. It is November 23rd. It is 7:01 and 6 seconds. I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. I think we may have a couple other folks joining us, but for now we can certainly get going. And thank you all for attending. Tonight's meeting is a public hearing, though I don't know how many members of the public will be listening in, but it is a public hearing advertised as such in the newspapers a couple of weeks ago, which is why we had to push it back because of the deadlines associated with it, advertisement. And we are conflicting, as has been noted, with a select board meeting that is ongoing as we speak. But the alternative was meeting tomorrow night. And that would have been, Linda, I think I have your screen. I don't know why I do.
I don't know either.
There we go.
There you go.
Anyway, the alternative would have been, we would have been the night before Thanksgiving and all through the house. So we're not doing that. So the plan for tonight, it's a little novel for us, but per our last meeting, we made assignments for just, I think all of the major departments, and even some of the minor ones, to assign liaisons to those departments to reach out to the department heads. And I believe that was largely done, to go through the capital plans as they were sent to us in October by Charlie. The most accurate version of that, I think, is the spreadsheet. If I'm not mistaken, there is a larger document that provides some more detail. And we may refer to that at various times for descriptions, but, of proposals. But for the most part, the most accurate in terms of numbers and timing is the spreadsheet. So we'll be working off of that. And the plan for tonight was to work through the liaisons, to do a brief overview of their interaction with the department heads, which should have entailed basically just going through the capital plans and evaluating whether there's anything different, new, changed, outstanding, or outstanding in the sense that it requires extra attention by the Finance Committee. The goal is to get through the entire capital plan tonight, department by department. I expect that each round will be short because there aren't a lot of alarming things in it, being considering where the town is financially, and that I think most of the department heads were fairly conservative in their at least planning for FY23 and 24. And then our job as the Finance Committee, and I'll do this, is to produce a report submitted to the TA and the Select Board by November 30th. And our work, at least in terms of the capital plan, will be largely complete at that point. A question did come up, and I'll just address it very briefly before we get into the agenda. There are a few things in the capital plan that look like consulting, and I asked Charlie today if those would need to be pulled out as individual articles because they don't look like capital requests per se. And I believe the generic response was, yes, they're probably not capital requests. And I see Charlie nodding yes. So when we get to them, they're spread out over a couple of departments, and we'll just note them as such and just put them off to the side because they aren't technically oriented to capital. So per the agenda, the first order of business is to look at the minutes from October 20th. I hope everyone's had a chance to read them. Karen distributed them a week or two ago. It was a pretty straightforward meeting. It's a short agenda, or short minutes rather. And if no one has an issue, I would certainly entertain a motion to accept the minutes from October 20th.
So moved.
All right, can I have a second?
Second,
Is that Jeff Tash?
yes.
I don't see you on my screen, Jeff, so I'll just assume you're there. I'll just do a roll call. I'll say aye. Stephen? Is that an aye? Oh. Jeff?
Aye.
Aye.
Two Jeffs. Bob?
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Kathy?
Was not present. Did I abstain or do we? go
True,
through this
yeah,
all the
no,
time?
yes, don't vote.
Okay,
Jen,
Aye.
Ira,
Aye.
and I can't see on my screen, is Mo there? He
No.
appears not to be. So the minutes are accepted by a vote of, I've got to do a count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 8, 8-0. And thank
Sounds
you.
right.
What's that?
Sounds right. When Mo
Okay.
was here last month, it was 9-0, so it sounds good.
Thank you. I'm going to turn over the meeting for a moment to Kathy and Charlie as appropriate. Just for a quick update on progress report on the state of town finance and through the work group that we established that Kathy and Jeff and Mo are on. I know you guys had a meeting last month and we've probably all read the Independent, so we get that side of the report. But if you could just give us a sense of where we are to date.
So I'm going to, in the interest of time, Fred, what I think I'll do is I'll let Charlie, what I have found in our work group is by the time I get here, we met on October 9th and have another meeting planned for December. What I found is everything that we sit and chat with Charlie about is reflected either in other public meetings or by the time we get here, he's got more updates from the 2 weeks work between the time that we've met. So really, really happy and very, very thankful that there seems to just be no discrepancies in communication. So what I would like to do is defer to Charlie for the most updated. And I'm sure he's going to cover everything that we've talked about and more since the 9th of November. So that's what I'm going to do.
Okay, I can go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Charlie.
Okay. Yeah, and thank you to the members of the subcommittee. We appreciate those meetings. We find them productive, and it allows us to sort of provide updates in different venues. And so I believe they've been productive, and they've been fun as well, which is never a bad thing. So let me just go over a few items, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have. So I think a few of you know we've been struggling on many fronts. One of them was to get the tax rate set for fiscal year 2022. And we've been working really closely with the Department of Revenue and with the town's financial staff. And we did get the tax rate set last week, and we mailed out tax bills on November 18th. You've probably all received them. And they'll be due on December 20th. Obviously that was a big deal. We had some challenges, to say the very least, but the Department of Revenue was a huge cooperative partner in assisting the town. I did meet with Fred as the chair, along with Ryan as the chair of the select board, with Mary and Lisa, gave them an update, and then we met with your subcommittee task force. The reality is that in order to get the tax rate set based upon what the town approved at the June 26th, 2021 annual town meeting, we really have used all of our local receipts, all of our revenues to get that done. It was a push. The Department of Revenue did provide some allowances, things that they typically don't do, mostly in the area of marijuana revenues, because in room occupancy tax revenues, because they've been so strong. So we're grateful for that. But we got the tax bills out, and that's important because we would start to have a cash flow problem as we got through the Christmas period, and that would have necessitated a temporary borrowing, and it would have cost time, energy, and money. We've avoided that. So that's a good thing. One challenge that came up very recently, and I don't think anybody knows about it per se, is that our town treasurer, Miriam Spencer, gave me her letter of resignation on Monday, November 15th. And the effective date of that resignation is December 1st. Now, I've talked about this in the past with the subcommittee task force. You know, we have some other folks on leave, authorized appropriate leave in the town accountant's office. I won't get into any detail. So, you know, Lisa Sauvé has been doing everything, two people's job in that office. And now with Miriam Spencer leaving, I'm going to have to take Mary McIsaac and appoint her as the interim town treasurer. I have no choice. Now, the good thing is Mary's a experienced, bona fide, certified state treasurer, you know, Massachusetts treasurer. So, you know, we won't miss a beat and she'll do a good job, sort of filling that dike. But it's, you know, both cases, it's going to detract from their critical tasks that they were working on in the work plan. And as I think I had talked about last time or recently, we were really hoping that by the end of December, that we would be ready to close out fiscal 2020 and fiscal 2021. And that would allow us to certify free cash sometime in January. Those are going to be compromised because of this situation. It's just, it's our reality, and we're just going to have to deal with it. I have advertised for the town treasurer's position as of today. It'll be in appropriate journals and publications, and we're going to try to fill that position sooner than later. And the nice thing is, if I can find someone now, even if it's someone who might be an assistant treasurer in another community, this would be a nice opportunity in Wellfleet, because we're going to have Mary and Lisa who can mentor, you know, somewhat of that, you know, situation. So anyway, we're, you know, it's upsetting, but, you know, we have to, you know, continue to try to, you know, persevere and get the job done. And Mary, Lisa, and I are all committed to finishing the tasks that we've talked about. You know, this has been more demanding and taken more time than we had originally hoped for, but nevertheless, we are persevering. And Lisa and Mary are incredible. I just want to, you know, recognize their efforts. I mean, we were leaving, you know, they were leaving today, and they're going to work from home tomorrow, and they were both planning on working together at Mary's house on Saturday and Sunday. So that's what you have in these two women working to support, you know, this project.
Is it possible to compensate them with some sort of a bonus?
You know, well, they do get paid we all get paid by the hour.
So they're all getting paid, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so, you know, when they work more, they're gonna get paid more, but, you know, frankly, we're all retirees, and, you know.
Okay, so
like
then
this-
could we perhaps hire somebody as a part-time person to help out?
Well, we have, I'll talk about that in a moment. The thing is, we can
Okay.
hire someone, but we need to hire people that know what they're doing.
Right,
So that's the challenge. I'm going to talk
Right.
about that in a moment. But thank you for offering that, and thank you for mentioning that. I'm working on the financial forecast for fiscal 2023 with the, I'm looking at the select board meeting, and they're helping me with the financial forecast. I hope to have that done sometime in early December. And that's going to be an important document for me to present to the select board and to the finance committee, because we're really going to look out over the horizon 5 years, but more critically, what does fiscal 23 look like? You know, honestly, you're going to need an override, in my opinion, based upon what I know today. The question is, how much, if you want to maintain the level of services that you have today? But anyway, I'm working on that. The Department of Revenue has been providing extra services to help me with that. Now, I have hired a woman named Judy Sprague, to go back to a comment that was made a moment ago. Judy is a retired official from COM Fire District, but she has a lot of experience in accounts payable, general ledger, budgeting, treasury. She's a jack of all trades. She's going to be working for us for a couple of months. And immediately she's going to be working with me on the budget and the warrant. So that when we get through the holidays, that I can give the select board and the finance committee a budget and a warrant to start working on for the spring town meeting. Once Mary gets finished with that, we'll have some other assignments for her. But once again, she's a retiree, and she's got a lot of good experience. I frankly, if I can find someone else to help, I'll hire them. But we have sort of, between Mary, Lisa, and myself, we have some feelers out there to try to find someone else to help. Because we just don't want to lose the momentum that we've created. So that the town auditors are scheduled to be here on December 13th to do the audit for fiscal 2021. I might have to delay that a couple of weeks, but we want to get that audit done when Mary and Lisa are here for obvious reasons. And we'd like to have a clean audit. We'd like to be able to demonstrate that we've resolved a number of issues that were mentioned in the management letter last year. So that's our goal. I think I'm going to stop right there because I'm probably running out of time. And I will just answer any questions that you might have.
I do have a question for you about going forward. I know the search committee or the screening committee has not really begun their work yet. In fact, we have to, at our next meeting, I've been told we need to approve something out of our reserve fund to pay for the consultants who will then identify the candidates for the screening committee or for the search. So that is a TBD yet. But given that that Miriam is leaving and we don't have an accountant except for you guys, and we don't have a TA and all, right now, as I understand it, the only screening committee search is for the TA. And it seems to me that there may be a requirement at some point to have, and there's been talk about having a finance director possibly doubling as an accountant in the future in order to kind of coordinate all the financial roles in the town, many of which are either vacant or kind of drifting.
Excuse me, Fred, point of order here. Why are we discussing something that's hypothetical and not yet presented to us and not on the agenda?
Because
Okay,
the
Tell me.
the overview of the town financial system is on the agenda. And I just want to ask a simple question about whether Charlie is going to recommend that a finance director might be an appropriate choice for the town going forward.
Is that something we're considering tonight? No, it's not been presented to us. You're talking about creating a new position, which there's a process in which that happens. It may be a good idea, but I really don't think we should be discussing it tonight.
All right.
That's all I have to say.
It's not important that we get the answer tonight, to your point. It was just a point of curiosity, so I will table that question. Forget it, Charlie. Question is unasked.
And I'll gladly
Thank
come to
you.
the next meeting.
Okay. If anyone else has any other questions, pertinent questions for Charlie, please just ask them now. This would be a good time. Otherwise, we'll move on to the capital improvement stuff.
Just want to say thank you.
Yeah.
So
Yes, thank you, Charlie.
when we get, Fred, just to sum up, when Mo and I and Jeff get to meet with Charlie and Mary, it is always eye-opening. They are so open and forthcoming with all of the information. And when I started this, we kind of didn't know where we were, and I thought it was really important that we had eyes directly on from the finance committee, but I can't be more pleased with the information and what they share about processing. And I feel much more comfortable, like I said, that his information is shared with us and the message is consistent throughout whichever outlet it is. So I didn't really feel the need to speak. And that's my pitch for tonight. But thank you for all the work you're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of you have reached out to me, Mary, Elisa, in different venues, and, we appreciate your support, and it is challenging, but I've met a lot of wonderful people working in this community, so thank you all.
Before you get off, and as we segue into our capital improvement planning review, is there anything that you want to say about the capital plan that you presented to us that you think merits our attention before we get into the detail?
I'm gonna say no, not at the moment. Just because I'm sort of watching my other computer screen here, and I'm getting nervous. I'm going to because we are interviewing a TA search consultant in a moment, and
All right.
I'm sort of distracted. So
I'll assume the answer is a generic no for the time being.
yeah.
And if you think of anything, feel free to pop back on.
Okay, good. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to
Thank
run.
you.
Thanks, Charlie. So with that, we will segue to the actual review of the capital improvement plans as presented in the spreadsheet that Charlie sent. The title of it is CIP Spreadsheet 2023. Hopefully everybody's got it open because it is the one sort of coherent picture of what's being requested. And we'll start with MIS and just go through the order that's presented in the spreadsheet. It goes from small to large to small to large, so it's not in any particular order in terms of scope, but it's fairly consistent with the way the budget gets presented. So there is that. The first one is the MIS department. I took the liberty of reaching out on that one. As you'll note, it's $50,000 a year. It's been $50,000 a year every year. We've addressed that in the past. It is what it appears to be, a sort of generic, you could say not to exceed number, but the reality is that it fluctuates somewhat year over year. It's involved with upgrades and new installs, replacement of computers, and so on. In the past, we have had very little to say about it. If anyone has any specific questions or issues with the MIS budget, this would be a good time to say so. Otherwise, I would suggest that we recommend it.
So moved.
A second.
Anyone who feels that we shouldn't, please signify by saying nay. Otherwise, I'll assume it's an 8-0 aye. Okay. The town clerk has one request for FY23. It's $3,000 for records microfilming. This is a project that's been ongoing. I don't think it's particularly alarming that it's a multi-year project. I think it's just an ongoing thing. Records come and go, and they, as we've discussed in previous years, while microfilming may seem like an archaic technology to use for recording rather than fully digitizing them, it is what it is. I think the argument for microfilming was that it's a durable medium that can be stored. I would entertain a motion to approve the town clerk budget of $3,000 for FY23.
So moved.
Second,
Anyone opposed? Okay. Another 8-0. Shellfish, Nancy Chivetta, we made a change about a month ago. It said Stephen is the Shellfish Department liaison. It resolved an issue of whether Bob would have to recuse himself or not as a liaison. So that sort of neatly avoided Bob's having to go back to the state ethics committee or board and ask whether he in fact can be a liaison, having already had to recuse himself on votes regarding the Shellfish Department. I reached out to Nancy today because she had expressed an interest in being at our meeting, and I hadn't heard from her and she is under the weather. So she will not be able to attend, and I asked her if there was anything significant to pay attention to. And basically, she just pointed at the two items in FY '23. I'd just like to note that there are three things basically that we can do as a finance committee regarding individual budgets or even line items, which is either recommend, not recommend, or reserve our recommendation, either pending more information or reserve our recommendation to town meeting. We do not have to vote to recommend or not recommend. Having said that, in the past, we typically have looked at the 5-year capital plans, putting the most weight on the first 2 years, because those are the numbers that are usually the most real, with the possible exception of the routine replacements of vehicles that you find in the police and fire departments. Having said that, in FY '23, there are two items in the shellfish department, and the two that are most controversial, which have been, are in FY '24. So I guess I would suggest, and Stephen, if you want to take a lead on this. that we look
Sure, I wanted to,
first, and then we can look at FY '24 separately.
okay, so did everybody get a chance to review her requests? Just see.
If not,
you have any- if-
they're on pages 4 and 5 for FY '23 of the larger capital plan.
Because if you haven't have any questions, this would be the point where we would ask Nancy, but she's not here. So my observation on this, so we can we recommend removing an item from like FY 2024? Or do we just say recommend or not recommend?
Well, we can not recommend with a point of view. If we felt
Okay.
that the item was inappropriate for whatever reason, or should be pushed back further, or, there's a variety of ways of removing it. It could be removed. and
Okay,
pushed
so I'll
back.
be quick, Fred, okay?
Yeah,
So I move that we not do the old shellfish office repair project. That was voted down at town meeting. And I guess I'm the old turtle in town who remembers when at town meeting, we had Barbara Echeverria get up in front of everybody and give her best Norma Ray impression. We're gonna take this property back for the town because it was given to us, blah, blah, blah. And the town did appropriate money for a study, and it came back and they said that it's not worth investing in, it should be torn down. She's coming back again with the same request she requested 2 years ago. Also, I'm concerned if they're still using it because she has put in print that there's toxic mold in there. So if she is using it, which I hope she's not, she's also putting town employees' health at risk. So I would like to recommend that we remove that. I say this too because when I did speak with Will, he has really should be in a consultancy item, but he has a request for 30,000 for a marina study for best use. Again, I don't think it should be in the capital. It could be in operating, and it does make sense. And I did ask him, within those plans, can we figure out a permanent location for the shellfish department? He said yes. So I don't think that the town, I mean, I know it's not this year, but I think we really needs to remove this so that we could stop the idea that that building could be saved, and also let the shellfish department know that yes, down the line, this issue you're having will be addressed, and it'll be a permanent solution, not just a little 40,000 here to do roof and shingle and mitigate mold for a building that really should be torn down.
now we're talking about the item in FY '24 for
Right.
the shellfish office repair, not the shellfish and office repair project in FY '23, or you?
No, that one is the building that they're in now. Apparently, according to Will, they were advised, and again, I think this should be a DPW thing, but apparently they want to split the repairs. That's the building that they used to rent out for $40,000 a year,
Mhm.
where the sticker shack is and the shellfish office is. So that does, according to Will, need a roof. So it is a project that does need to get done. It's the one that she has in FY '24 that I'd like to remove from this plan.
So the fact that she notes on the one that's for FY '23 that she's working with the DPW to come up with the estimates. They're both
Yeah.
42,000. Is that just a coincidence that they happen to be both $42,000?
Yeah, I think that's right. I did the same thing. I was like, oh, no, they both happen to be the same price tag, but it's actually 84,000. It's being split. I think you'll see in the beach, somewhere in the beach department.
Now, the beach
Good.
department has no capital plan this year.
Okay, so that 42 for FY '23 is not related to the building I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's relating to the existing one.
Well,
So
let me
that's
open,
definitely something that needs to be done.
let me open it up to the rest of the committee. What do you guys think about what Stephen is saying in terms of either not recommending or reserving recommendation based on all of these criteria until these questions are answered?
So Fred, can I jump in?
Please.
I have, if we're looking at 2023, remember, we just talked about getting free cash certified for 20 and 21. I am not, as a general principle, going through this, I am not in favor of approving anything that we can choose to not spend this year other than operating and truck, like vehicle replacements that we've pushed off. So when and I understand that we have an obligation to upkeep our buildings and to maintain them. But the problem that I have is in going through this, and I just want to kind of give you where like when we get further down the road, why I am doing what I'm doing. But there's a whole bunch of buildings and a whole bunch of repairs and a whole bunch of revetments, and we truly don't know how much money we're going to have in 2023, and we don't know what the priority are of those buildings and those needs. So I'm finding it a little hard to say, yeah, $42,000 for this roof when there may be something that's actually falling down. So I'm gonna have a hard time tossing money out that we don't know that we have, and we don't know what the priority is in building maintenance and upkeep prior to spending this.
So Fred, I could answer that.
Yes, please.
Kathy, the priority would be for the existing buildings, right? People are working in these buildings. So we need to maintain them.
Okay, so as the liaison on this one, Stephen, if you feel that we need that roof, I'm gonna trust your judgment as a colleague on the FinCom with me. So I agree. I don't think that building, I think that other building keeps coming up like a bad penny. And there needs to be a resolution on that. But if this is for the roof, and that is a priority, and based on your liaison report, I trust you.
So the other thing is, it also sends a message in a certain sense. She'll be aware of the fact that the harbor master is also working on planning to have an ultimate solution that's going to work going forward forever. So I mean, can we say I recommend removing, and I know the main focus is FY '23, because that's going to be stuff that's going to come up to town meeting, but I think we also should, I mean, can't we just say we're going to remove it? Or
Well, I think what
not
we can say-
recommend, or what do you?
Yeah, no, I think we can say we don't recommend that project pending the study that's going to be done by the harbor master on developing a permanent solution for that building or for
Well,
housing.
I don't think we need to be
recommend
that wordy. I think we should just focus on that one building that we know should be destroyed and just say we don't recommend that expense. None of this pending stuff. Okay?
Well, you had mentioned before that Will is working on a plan that will.
Right.
But it
So-
won't
so
include,
I'm
but it
trying
won't
to-
include that building. But that's.
It will
all-
not
that-
include that
That
building.
will
no.
not include that building. That's what, so that building is, yeah. I'm tired of talking about that building.
I know.
Jeff Cash?
Yeah, I mean, if what Stephen is saying, and this was actually voted down at town meeting, and then it's being brought back up, I've got a real problem. And I'm looking at the other one in 24, and they're talking about the Upweller.
That's well.
And I just remember the Upweller coming up every year, and I don't even understand,
That was my next one. If you
So I
want.
mean, I look at this is where the 5-year plan sort of is, well, let's just focus on, I totally agree with both Stephen and Kathy that let's minimize whatever we can for 2024. And in the meantime, for 2023, given our current situation, I mean, we gotta keep that building. I mean, that's where people go for, beach
Mhm.
permits and whatever. So we gotta make sure that that's correct. But some of these other things, it just seems to always come back to some of the same issues over and over.
But so if we can sort of solidify 2023, the truck that she's asking for is a 2018 vintage. It's on a 5-year plan, and this is a replacement of that truck. So if you all are comfortable with it, I think what I'm hearing, I guess, is that we can approve or recommend the expenditures for 2023, and that we have issues with the expenditures for 2024. Is that generically true?
Yes.
Yeah, if we have
So-
trucks on a regular replacement maintenance plan that we have it already and we're not getting a new one. I'm
Yeah,
fine.
we're not gonna.
Yeah.
The other thing we could try is I could recommend removing for FY 2024, remove the old Shellfish Office repair project and remove the floating Upweller project, and then just approve our recommendations without that. Moving on to the Upweller Nursery project. Basically, thanks to Bob, I've got some very good information to share with you. The period of time in which one of these would be used would be from May to September. So it wouldn't require a full-time position, because I do believe she's angling for a full-time position to take care of this program. There is the opportunity to take advantage of a used Upweller that was once, I believe, here in Wellfleet. I believe, according to Bob, it's still working. So if she really wants to get this project going, there would be the opportunity to take advantage of a free piece of equipment. And the other idea that Bob shared with me, which I think is a great one, is during the summertime, let's get in touch with the local university that specializes in aquaculture school. I know I sound dumb, but see if an intern is available to help us with this, to get it started. So that would at least give us an opportunity to have low cash outlay for this kind of a project, start it so she can start the project, and then as it progresses, then come to us and come to the town and say, okay, this is what we've done so far. This is how we can show you what the results are. And this is why we're asking for new equipment in a full-time position. In this particular case, she's jumping right in and going for the new equipment in the new position. So I don't think that's good planning for the town. So I would like to recommend for line number 3, the Shellfish Department, to remove the following figures for FY 2024. The $42,000 for the old Shellfish Office repair program, and the 34, what is that? I can't even read it. The
34,057.
for the floating Upweller Nursery program, and then recommend everything else. So that's what I'm proposing. Just needs a second.
I'll
Not gonna-
second.
I think that's very thoughtful, Stephen.
Okay, we'll figure out what the wording needs to be in terms of how we don't recommend it. I understand the issue with the Upweller, and I know it's an issue that
Right,
keeps.
and here's the thing, it doesn't mean that she's not gonna get it. She's gonna have
No,
to
no,
convince the selectmen, but I'm just saying that I think as town, we're supposed to be the financial watchdog for the town. I do believe she's doing a great job. I support shellfishing industry 100%. I've got several friends. I've worked myself part-time, and it has made me appreciate my job much, much more. And I understand the piece of it within the whole structure of Wellfleet economically. However, it is only one piece of it. So I think that we need to kind
and I
of
guess
make a
that
statement.
point,
That's,
I'm a little concerned that we not overstep our boundaries in terms of our expertise and become policy setting here. But not
well,
recommend.
we're not setting a policy. We're just I just made a recommendation, and then we can approve it if everyone supports this. And then it can go on to the town administrator and Nancy Shavetta, and she wants to put it back in, she can put, I'm just,
No,
it's
I
not
understand.
like permanent.
I think if in not recommending it, I think we can also put verbiage in that she ought to that Nancy ought to explore alternatives.
Right, and we should list those alternatives for her, and if she wants me to contact a local university, I'll be more than happy to do it.
Okay,
And I'll go and inspect that Upweller with her as well, so she can point out to me the deficits in it.
so I'm going to try to paraphrase the motion here as best I can, that we recommend accepting the Shellfish Department's capital improvement plan with the exception of lines C and D for FY '24, the old Shellfish office repair and the floating Upweller nursery project, which we do not recommend. I know that's a convoluted way of saying it, but essentially we're saying we recommend the CIP for the Shellfish Department, but not those two line items.
I think my motion was to remove those figures from the CIP. I
Okay,
made the motion, and that's what,
and it was seconded, so I'll do a line item vote here. I will vote aye on that. Jen,
Aye.
Jeff Tash,
Aye.
Stephen, I'm confident. you're
wait, no, I changed my mind. No, just kidding.
gonna-
After further consideration.
Jeff, Behrens,
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Ira,
Yeah, aye.
Jen, did I get to you? I did not. Hi. The screens keep bouncing around. Somebody be up. You were up at the top next to me, and now you're down at the bottom. I think that's everyone. So 8-0 to accept that motion to remove lines C and D for FY '24.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know what? I think it might be worth jumping ahead to line 6 because your other liaison role is the Marina Department. You've already referenced the Marina anyway. Why don't we get that one out of the way?
Okay.
I think you noted that line E looks like consulting, and I talked to Charlie on a different line item having to do with the DPW, but it is a consulting project. It ought not to be in the capital plan. How it gets presented, whether it gets presented as a separate article or part of the operating budget is TBD between the TA and the department head. But we would not be voting on that tonight, in my opinion. Any line item that is calling for consulting is not capital.
Right. So I had a really nice talk with Will. He's got a good handle on things. And that makes sense. I mean, I don't think the town has actually done like a full assessment of the marina and its buildings and how it functions. So I would support it, but as you mentioned, it really shouldn't be in this budget.
And we will have the opportunity to support it later
Yeah,
when we see the ops budget.
and everything else is reasonable. If anybody had any questions about what everything else he's looking for.
Well, I know they're out there, but FY '25 and FY '27, the trucks these are replacement trucks or are they new? The boom truck looks like it might be new.
The boom truck apparently is very old, so I think we need to do it. The other one I think is part of the, why am I not seeing it? Okay, the boom truck, but that's in 2025
Yeah.
and there's nothing for this year.
Now, right now, it looks like a $10,000 portable radio replacement, which I believe is getting coordinated with the fire department.
Yeah, and they do need to replace the ice machine, but they put it out for 2025. And I mean, I said to him, I thought, wouldn't that kind of be a priority because it does cross over to shellfish? But, I'm just going to trust his judgment on that.
Well, and then Stephen, you would know, having talked to Will and Nancy, it looks like the shellfish department and the marina department are working closely together to kind of coordinate
Yes.
planning. Is that right?
Yep.
Seems it's implied anyway.
Right. I did not get a chance to speak with Nancy. Sorry about that. I can't believe it's Thanksgiving, but yes, it looks like they've got a great relationship and they're watching out for each other and they're putting things in that would benefit both of them and the town overall. The ice machine thing, it's a small figure, but they don't have an amount. So that's why it's probably not an FY23. My thought it was they should be, but I'll leave it up to them. There was another one about it's not in here now anymore. Okay. The surveillance system, the
There.
camera system, and apparently he
Stephen,
feels it
they're in the-
needs.
Stephen, they're in the Shellfish E and F, and they have it in 2024, and the costs are to be determined. So
Okay.
it looks
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
the-
Shellfish Department put it in and Marina didn't put it in.
Oh, okay, so yeah, I thought, right. So whether she's got it or he has it, doesn't matter, but to me, he's got the control of it, so it should be under the Marina budget, but at this point, it doesn't matter.
So yeah, it looks like she has them listed as shared with, and he hasn't listed them yet, so.
So really all we're voting on the Marina Department CIP this year is line D, $10,000 for the portable radio replacements.
I'm so moved.
Second,
Second,
I second.
any nays? All right, then we'll vote 8-0 on the Marina. Thank you very much. The Rec Department, I believe that's Jen. You are muted, Jen. There you go.
Yeah, I just unmuted. Hi there.
Hi.
So I met with Becky Rosenberg. They're just looking at $14,500 for resurfacing of the basketball court at Mayo Beach. I think we put it off last year. So she gave me some of the backstory about the court, that it was the last time it was repaired was in 2009. And that was after many, many years of disrepair. They at some point had to close the courts because they were deemed unsafe. Her concern is that if this doesn't get done soon, this cost will continue to increase every year. And it is relatively short money to repair something and maintain it that gets used all the time on a regular basis.
Too bad we can't get some company to be a sponsor. You know, crypto.com just spent more money for the Laker building than it cost to build the thing.
Are you volunteering to find the money, Jeff?
No.
All right, well, then,
so I have wait, that's DPW, I'm sorry.
yeah, we're not there yet.
Okay,
If anyone has any serious objections to the Rec Department, this would be a good time to voice them. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the Rec Department. Oh, real quick question though, Jen.
Yep.
There's nothing beyond 2023. Is that real? Did
So-
you have that conversation?
We did have that conversation. At this point, it is real. They, a good chunk of their costs are really personnel costs. They don't anticipate too much. The only thing they might anticipate in a couple of years is a van, but they were pretty unsure of that, and that's why it wasn't included in this budget.
All right, then I would entertain a motion to recommend the Rec Department's one line item.
so moved.
Second,
Second,
anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Before we go on to the Council on Aging, Jen is also the liaison for the Beach Department, and do you want to speak to that, Jen? Or I can if you like, either way.
basically, they haven't submitted a capital plan. My only concern now that I've taken a look at all of these is that Nancy Cervetta did include the $42,000 for shellfish and office repair, and it says shared with the beach department. So,
Yes.
but the beach department hasn't submitted anything, so it makes me wonder about that. Is there another $42,000 that the beach department should be? And so that's something that we should probably follow up with her about.
And so I could comment on that because that was a conversation that I had with Will, because I guess apparently that building falls under his purview. So technically the beach and shellfish are renters. So
Okay,
that's why they wanted to split it. So if Suzanne's going to put it in her budget, I mean, I don't want to, I think we need to support it, or if Will puts it in his. It's just for that building itself. And
No,
he did
I
say
agree
they
that
were
I agree that it should be supported. I think the concern is that if the beach department is going to share part of that, they haven't submitted anything
Oh, yeah.
in a capital plan. So,
Okay.
so at the very least, we need to follow up with her to find out if that's her intention.
And in fact, I did speak with Suzanne a few weeks ago and asked her specifically if there was a capital plan for the beach, and what she didn't reference that office repair at all, just said that they had a number of vehicles that they had acquired that had a 10-year lifespan. Those were a few years out, so there was nothing coming up in the next 5 years. It might just be an oversight, and I agree. So if you wouldn't mind, Jen, just reaching back to Suzanne and just.
I'll follow up with her next week. She's away on vacation for the rest of this week, so I will touch base with her next week.
And I'll note in our report that we are reserving, pending our getting an answer to that question. But other than that, there's nothing to disapprove or approve if there's nothing there, so.
Right.
Okay, thank you for that. Council on Aging, our newest member, he's an alternate member, but eager and avid one. And I don't think it was inappropriate to give him an assignment for a couple small departments. So Jeff Behrens took on the Council on Aging and Health and Conservation, in part because I should have mentioned another one of our members, Sarah Robin, has had to resign. Go figure, she has a life. She has school-age children and a business to run, and any number of other issues that have precluded her being a fully participant member on the committee. And this was an amicable thing. Thank you.
Oh, I
for
hope we didn't scare her off.
Not at all. Sarah, that's the thing. Sarah is actually, she was avid, she was eager, she just had no time.
Yeah.
And that's, that became, well, it becomes an issue. If you don't have the time, you don't have the time. There's nothing to be said. Anyway, Jeff was kind enough to go ahead and pick up that cudgel and go with it. So Jeff, do you want to weigh in on the Council on Aging and Health and Conservation, please?
Sure. So Council on Aging, let's pull it up. Hold on a second. I have it right in front of me. There's a feasibility study. So again, the question of a consultant, so maybe not appropriate for capital budget. This is to ask the question, given some recent community surveys on use or potential future uses of the facility. And I think a goal of trying to, I guess, include or encourage activity by a younger population over time. I think they wanted to spend some time having an evaluation of how that building could be expanded to accommodate exercise equipment, other kinds of things, and to do that before doing some additional outside work. So again, given that I'm new at all this, it seemed like a reasonable thing, though again, may not necessarily be a true capital expense. That was one. And then the second, though I just realized there's a question that I didn't ask that I should have. This is about adding some machinery to the HVAC system to increase the sort of filtration, make the space a little bit more safe for use. Things like COVID and other bacteria can be potentially filtered out, screened out, or killed, I guess, electrostatically, which also seemed reasonable. Though I did, having now looked at the more broad list again, I did see that down below under DPW, point D, Council on Aging, there's an HVAC system upgrade for a slightly higher price. I'm not sure if that's an overlap or if that's being split in some way. That's a question that either I or someone probably should ask and get answered.
Yeah, they look like the same thing.
Yeah, just one's 20K and one's 25K. So that's the only.
Yeah.
And I certainly can shoot her an email right after this to ask that question, having just noticed it.
I think my inclination is to believe that the DPW one is the one that's real, and that the line B on the Council of Aging would be done by the DPW anyway.
Right.
Also, isn't line A a consultancy fee? So shouldn't this?
It is. Yeah.
So I think we can reasonably not recommend the CIP for the Council on Aging on two bases. One, that line A is consulting and doesn't belong in a capital plan. Line B looks like it's being covered by the DPW.
It is
And,
being covered by the DPW.
okay, then,
That's, so
there's-
that is the same. Okay, that's
and
good.
there is no capital plan per se for the Council on Aging, except what the DPW is going to take care of. Does that sound reasonable?
It does.
Okay, then we cannot recommend, I will take a motion not to recommend the Council on Aging capital plan on that basis, that line A is not a capital item and line B is in the DPW budget.
So moved.
A second,
Anybody against? Okay, thank you.
And then you want me to do the health conservation?
If you would.
Sure.
It looks like the first year is the purchasing and then it's O&M after that.
Yeah, this is software that I guess is going to be shared with the building department to deal with the workflow associated with building permits that have to move through a variety of different departments and staff's review for building and septic and all this kind of thing as permits move through. And it's currently a paper process. And so the goal was to move it to an online system. And I think it's an upfront capital cost for sure. And then there's an ongoing maintenance, which again, may not arguably be considered a capital cost after the first year. I'm not sure how the town.
Well, that's what I
accounts
was
for that.
going to get at. And in the initial cost as well, it's a software system. Do you have a sense of how much of it is actual capital equipment and how much of it is the software that comes with it?
My understanding is that it's software. It's not the hardware. And I think primarily it's a web-based system. So it's purchasing the license to it, which I think I'm not the accountant, but at least in my previous life, I think that often gets capitalized, even if it's software, it's not physical. But that ought to be confirmed by somebody who knows for sure. But that didn't seem crazy. And then the ongoing maintenance would be, I would imagine, an ongoing operating expense.
So I guess what I would suggest is that we defer our recommendation on this one pending the answer to that question. Is this in fact a capital item? Or is it a software purchase that really falls under operations and that much of it is O&M anyway? I
I imagine there's probably accounting policies that, you purchase above a certain dollar amount gets capitalized and spread over the life of the
that
asset.
could be, but since we don't know the answer, does anybody know the answer? Because I don't. I've seen software capitalized and I've seen it not over the years.
I've seen it both ways. I think she's probably trying to be as transparent as possible, that this is a cost that they're looking at. I think my question would be, if the health and conservation is purchasing it, how much integration? I mean, anything that is not a paper process that we can bring into the, out of the caves and into the light, I think is going to create efficiencies for the department. I think I'd like to know a little bit more about what departments are sharing it and what the workflow and what the efficiencies are going to be gained by it.
I agree with Kathy.
Okay, but
I
so
don't
just would like to
understand
point
why
out,
maintenance
okay,
is a capital expense.
so the initial purchase is a capital expense, even though it's esoteric in that it's software, but you're right, the maintenance piece to it, after you purchase the software, the maintenance piece of it goes to operations because they have to pay for it. So really the 70,400 should be a capital project for
And are we-
2023, and then
Are we purchasing software, running it on our computers? Are we buying a service?
My understanding is it's hosted in the cloud, so it's buying a license to the software.
so that's a
That would be
physical,
valid for-
yeah.
Yeah. So
But
that's-
I guess this would be my concern and why I think we ought to reserve our opinion. We have a team
Yeah.
right now working on the new chart of accounts and setting up the accounting system to account for just these issues. And we don't know what Vadar wants this to be. Let me put it that way. So why don't we just ask Lisa Sauvé and say, here's what they're doing. Where would you stick it? Is it capital? Is it operations? Is it what? Because why should we, I don't want to split hairs here. It's, we could just as easily say, sure, it's a capital expense, but let's be deferential to the
Yeah,
process.
no, definitely.
And-
Also, will it help with revenue forecasting? So does it dovetail into the Vader system? So we'll get an idea of, I don't know if you can forecast revenue for
Yeah,
permits.
I asked a little bit about that. How does it integrate with sort of the town accounting? And my understanding is it's an independent system. It will integrate with the the building department would also be logging in and using it, and homeowners, residents can log in and see their permits and things like that as well. But that it wouldn't be directly tied into the accounting system. There may be reports that could be, but it didn't sound like it was a tight integration.
I
Okay,
mean, we're splitting hairs to a degree because I don't think we're not going to recommend that they get the system. We're just trying to figure out where it belongs. So,
What it does.
so I'm not even sure how to phrase that. Let's say we can recommend the purchase, but we reserve our opinion on where it belongs. I mean, I suppose we could say that.
On the accounting treatment or something, right? The capitalization rules or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
or we'd like a test drive first.
Recommend, why don't you recommend 2023 with questions on ongoing placement of O&M?
Fair enough. And if that, is that a motion?
Sure.
So moved.
Okay, so we're going to recommend the capital plan for 2023 and reserve our opinion on 24 to 27 pending our
A
understanding
determination, yeah.
Yeah.
where it belongs in the accounting system.
Can we get more
Anybody
info
second?
on- Oh,
Second, no, go ahead.
Your second.
I can't do that.
No.
do you need a third? Because I'll
What?
third. I'll third.
You know what? If everybody wants to be a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth, then we've just voted for it. Anybody opposed to this convoluted motion? Thank you. So 8-0 to approve 23.
Fred,
Yes.
can we just ask, I'd like to see a little bit more information on it. I mean, I'm sure that they've done their due diligence on it and Jeff's done an outstanding job for his first test drive, but I'd like to see what it does. So,
And it'll be so noted. And actually, you could probably do that when you take your work group into town hall at some point.
whew,
You know,
wait,
get that test drive. All right, on we go. The police department, that would be Jeff Cash, I believe.
So it's probably no organization that got impacted by the whole pandemic and our fiscal crisis more than the police department. Back in fiscal 21, they have a regular plan for replacing their vehicles. And that all got disrupted. And basically the police department originally came back and canceled one and then town meeting canceled the other. We came back with 22 to get two. But here's where, because of the current supply chain issues, even though they've now been able to order it, you got, I think it's a 30-week backlog before they're going to get the replacements for fiscal year 22. And that's going to impact, because that means, like right now, the newest vehicle in the fleet's got like 70,000 miles on it. So that's going to crank up all of the maintenance costs to keep the existing fleet running until the new ones come in. And so basically, for line A, we've got a request for two additional, two replacement vehicles for fiscal 2023. Then you see again coming back the next in 2024. The only other thing in 2023 is I guess the bulletproof vests don't last forever, even if you don't shoot at them. So they need to be, they've reached the end of their life and need to be replaced.
Anybody have any questions of Jeff? I will say that there's no capital budget that ever looks more organized than the police year over year. I'll bet we could go back 2-3 years and it would look almost line to line, would look
Yeah.
very, very similar to this. It is as standard a capital plan as we ever get to see. Doesn't mean it's a good one, but I'm going to say it is a good one, but that it does kind of follow a pattern.
No ambiguity for sure.
None. Does anybody have any line item questions at all? Chief Hurley is still on the line somewhere, and I guess could be pulled in if we wave our arms. I know he's also on the select board meeting. But I see Chief Pauly and Chief Hurley are still both here. If anybody has any specific questions, otherwise I would entertain a motion to accept the capital plan for the police department.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, anybody opposed? All right, police. On to the fire department. That's Ira. Hi,
Yeah,
Ira.
I connected with Chief Pauly. I'm very satisfied with their capital improvement plan. I would point out the replacement ambulances, and that would be 355, which will come out of the ambulance fund. It's 2 years behind schedule to replace. They should be getting two, but they're only asking for one. And it takes an entire year to build. And the one that they have now is, they need a new ambulance. So I'm satisfied with that. The other large item is the replace engine 95, which according to Chief Pauly, how do we have a Hawley and a Pauly? Chief Pauly was never a great vehicle to begin with. It's always been trouble. It's now costing them 12 grand annually to fix. And so that is engine 95. And those are the two big items on this coming fiscal year.
So
Seems
I
very
see,
reasonable to me.
I see Chief Pauly is now visible, but muted. If I recall, we saw fire engine 95 replacement last year as well, and it got deferred. Is that correct?
I don't know. the
Rich?
answer.
I believe that's correct, Mr. Chair. It's the chief. Thank you. The truck was built in 1998. By the time, if it's approved at the town meeting in April, by the time we may see its replacement, will probably 2023, maybe in 2024, because of supply chain issues, as you've heard. The truck was, when it was purchased in 1998, this is a quick story. Town meeting did not approve enough money to do it the right way the first time around. And the fire chief had to, at the time, had to go back around the second year and get more money. So it's a hybrid of two different manufacturers and two different trucks. So coming right out of the play, right out the door, it came with some issues. It's been problematic. We put a lot of money into it. Last year, we had it out of service for 2 months waiting for brake parts for it because one of the manufacturers of the two is no longer in service or no longer viable or no longer in business, I should say. So finding parts for this truck is becoming more and more impossible. It's at the end of its lifespan, 25 years. It's actually beyond its lifespan, expected lifespan. So it's a lot of money, and I understand, but it's time to replace this truck. And yeah, I believe we did defer it from last year. Thank you.
Thank you.
So can I say something, Fred?
Yeah, of course.
I talked to, through part of the working group and speaking with Charlie, just kind of like theory again on this, is vehicle replacement, and this kind of really gets me with spending 20 minutes at town meeting on the boat that we've had since, the Vikings sailed it here for the harbor. So I think that, I think that has to be a way in the future with the new TA where reasonable vehicle replacements isn't something that should necessarily be voted on. There should be a replacement plan. I don't know how we get that done, but when we have the new TA and we go moving forward, like vehicle replacement, we shouldn't be waiting, we shouldn't be deferring ambulance and cruiser replacement because it goes to a town meeting vote. So I don't know how to do that, but I'm just thinking in the long term that, you know what, Chief, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm sick of talking about the ambulance too. I want you to just have it. I want you to just have it when you need it. I think that's an important part of the town.
Well,
Maybe we could earmark some of the marijuana money in the room tax thing, like create a fund specifically for purchasing so that you can just outright buy it.
that's been proposed. I mean, everybody wants a piece of that money. As we probably noted from our last meeting, the room tax, 80% was trying to be glommed on for affordable housing as well. But yeah, it's been floated that we should have a capital fund for the town from which monies are withdrawn for the essential vehicles and
For
whatnot.
fire and safety. I mean,
Absolutely.
fire and safety vehicles only. Everything
that-
else.
Yeah, that should be something that, so I think that that's something we have to look at long-term for restructure so that the chief doesn't have to keep, either chief has to keep coming before us and to replace, it's replacement. It's not, anyway, that's.
It might be worthwhile too for the finance committee to weigh in on that subject ahead of when the new TA and whatever comes in. We have a meeting in December where we may not have a whole lot to do. The budgets won't be fully cooked by then, and this process will be done. But there are questions that are looming about whether the town needs an override to get ahead of the game, and how big that override should be, and what would it encompass? What kind of funds might get set up if the town voted for an override? And that might be worth a conversation amongst ourselves here to see where we stand on the notion of that maybe one time or periodic vote for an override to fund things that fall outside of Prop 2.5 and that do require going to town meeting to ask for things that the town should just be funding, to the point you both made. So
If you listen to Charlie earlier tonight, what he basically said is, we're gonna have a big override, or we're gonna be reducing the services, whether or not we even have, fire trucks showing up for fire. So I mean, I think we're already looking at, from what Charlie is indicating, a pretty substantial override just to get caught back up.
well, the concept's certainly in the air, and it might be worth the finance committee talking about it without necessarily having to be fully specific at this point, but at least put a stick in the ground and say, this is how we feel about it anyway.
So
Does anybody have?
Fred, to that point,
Excuse
maybe,
me.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna
Excuse me,
mention,
Mr. Chair, I have a solution. I'm sorry, Steve.
go ahead. Who, you wanna go? Or-
It's the fire chief. I have a solution to this problem with respect to fire apparatus and ambulance replacement. And it's to allow the ambulance receipts fund to be utilized pretty much exclusively for replacement of ambulances and big
I
ticket
don't think you can
fire
do
engine
that.
or even a ladder truck down the road. We can do that. We have done it in the past, but unfortunately, in the past, that ambulance receipts fund has been siphoned by about $300,000 a year to help balance town budget. But we can put in place a program that the ambulance receipts fund is specifically used to replace ambulances, a fire engine from time to time, in accordance with the capital improvement plan, of course. And then any major, equipment purchase, which we would bring to town meeting. But the ambulance receipts fund should take at least $400,000 to $450,000 a year. History-wise shows us that. So we've got the funding mechanism in place. We just need to stick with it. And I'd be more than happy to do more of a study, more of a proposal, for the select board and the FinCom and the new town administrator. But other towns and cities do this, and they do it with success.
Okay, so to your point, I just wanted to point out to you, the ambulance receipt funds, those are receipts that the town owns. They are earmarked for the ambulance, but they don't necessarily need to be spent that way. And that's what you saw, I think, when Harry Turkanian told you he promised it and then used it for something else. The town can do that. What we need to come up with is a fund that's specifically for purchasing. So the only thing I was going to say to you, Fred, was perhaps we should start another task force on alternative revenue sources
Smoke more
going
pot.
forward.
Chief Polly, has your ambulance fund been replenished? I think it was rated 2 years ago. Has that been replenished or it has been?
We will have, my projection is that if this
You're in and
ambulance is approved at town meeting. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
You were
you're-
going in and out.
I can't see a lot of you.
Yeah, you got a bad internet connection.
It may be a problem on this end.
Rich, if you shut off your camera, you might be able to have better connection.
Okay, I'll try that. How's that?
It's better.
I still see you. But you also look like you're muted on my end. I don't know how you're talking because I see your picture and you're muted, and yet here I
Yeah,
hear
you
you.
don't want to
Well-
mute. You want to shut your camera off.
My camera
Could
is
I
shut off.
suggest that at this stage, we move on with the capital improvement plan? Because this
Yeah, I
does,
think
Yeah.
that's fair. And
That's fair.
Stephen,
Thanks, Ira.
let's put on the agenda for the next meeting, whether we would like to consider doing that sort of working group,
Yeah.
okay?
Sounds
And
good to
what
me.
the part would be. Does anybody have any other concerns about the fire departments? Is Bob still on the line, by the way? I don't see him anywhere. Did he drop off?
I think
Bob
so.
off? Okay. Does anybody have any other issues, concerns, questions about the fire department's capital improvement plan? The two largest items having been explained, and I don't see any really huge ones for about 3-4 years after that. I do have one question for Chief Pauly. Are you still there, Rich? Well, maybe it doesn't matter, but the portable radio replacement project, there are other departments that appear to be doing portable radio replacements. Is this all under the same umbrella, would be the question. But
Can you hear me, Mr. Chair?
yes,
I just got my Wi-Fi back up and running here.
Okay.
The primary radio replacement project is we're getting a substantial grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to help us with this grant. We don't have the exact number nailed down, but will be significant. My biggest concern is that we have no communication between the fire department and the harbor master when we're responding to emergencies out on the water. We don't have a common frequency.
and that's
So-
why I was asking, because line D in the marina is a portable radio replacement for 10,000, and then there's 80 in yours. Is that the same project? Or is there
It's two different projects, but the intent of those projects is that the marina, the harbor master will have fire department radios in their boats. So
Okay.
I can speak with them directly on land, from land to them while they're responding out through the harbor. So that's the plan, to have direct communication with harbor master and fire rescue.
Got it. If there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion to accept the capital improvement plan for the fire department.
so move.
Is there a
Second.
second? Anyone opposed? Then I believe we're down to 7-0 with Bob. Unless Bob's hiding somewhere. All right, DPW.
Okay, and the DPW's facilities capital plan, I think just about everything but the feasibility study we approved last year, and it was pushed back to this year. Fred, you and I discussed the feasibility study. It may not belong where it is.
That's line F5.
Yes,
Right.
the equipment, same thing. They were approved last year. And then we recommended them last year, I'm sorry. And then they were pushed back. So we're really working on the same numbers we worked on last year.
And that is actually 100% true on, I don't remember what we said about the equipment storage building, line F1, but all of the other equipment that was listed in FY23 was listed last year, and we pushed it back. But
Right.
we
The
approved, we
equip-
recommended it. We
The
did
equipment
recommend it.
storage building was for last year. I can't remember if we approved it or not, but then after, that was Mark's plan. When Jay came on board, he moved that back and thought a feasibility study about how the traffic flow and safety should be at the transfer station would be a better first step before putting the building in. So he pushed it back another year to 2024 till we get the feasibility study. But now we're not sure if the feasibility study should be in the capital
It should
improvement
not be in there.
plan.
Well, yeah, but we're
It
not
shouldn't.
saying that it shouldn't happen. We're just saying, we're
Right,
not necessarily saying it shouldn't happen. We're just saying, does it belong here?
right.
So
Um,
I have a question though. On the band shell awning replacement.
Yeah, did they up the price on that?
Yeah, how many quotes did they get? Do we know?
So I know a little bit of something about this, if I can chime in here, because I talked to Becky at the rec department. So this is being done with the DPW with Becky's support. So what they want to do is kind of change the structure so that it's more similar to the new thing, I don't know what you want to call it, I guess bandstand, the new bandstand down at Mayo Beach. So it would be a wood structure on top of the decking there. So it's not just really replacing the canvas, it's really having a structure built that is an all wood structure that wouldn't need a canvas cover.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
that's exactly what the proposal is here that I got from Jay.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I've seen a photograph of what they want to replace. It's, it's a structure that would last 20 years, that it wouldn't need a canvas replacement. The deck system that's already existing is in really good shape. They wouldn't need to replace that, but it would get rid of all of those metal pieces and the canvas that goes with it. So, and they have some ideas in terms of revenue generating that, they think this could be something that could be rented out, because I guess the bandstand at Mayo Beach, they've had a lot of requests and rental requests for weddings and events. And they really do believe that because everyone is kind of wants to do things outside, that there'll be a lot more events.
So I'd be
bandstand
interested to see
kind of
that, those
misnomer.
plans. Now, have they approached the family that donated the money for the band shell to see if they want to contribute to help with this?
They did not discuss that. Becky didn't
Okay.
mention that to me,
So I
no.
would recommend that you reach out to that family and just tell them what the town's looking at doing. Would they like to help with it? And if not, then we should remove the plaque on there that says it's their band shell. I think it's the Roman family.
The other thing I would share is that I think last year they were told to ask for community preservation funds for this project.
Yeah.
And she would have submitted for community preservation funds, but there's only like 3 categories you can submit for community preservation funds. And the school had submitted for their plan under recreation for their new playground in the back of the school. So she didn't want to be in a position to be competing with the school.
I just don't know why we need this in fiscal year 2023. When it just seems like a luxury. We went for decades without having any kind of a bandstand. What they have there now is totally functional unless it's raining. And I don't know who goes dancing when it's raining. I'm not really sure why we want to spend the money in 2023.
You've
Yeah,
got a
I-
point there.
Yeah, I
agree.
kind of agree.
I agree, Jeff, because we've seen this proposal before and we've had the suggestions of going back to the family. The other one was community preservation and the other one was some type of crowdsourcing from direct users. So again, this is another case of something that pops up and I'm not thrilled to spend the money this year.
We got a town without an accountant, without a TA, without anybody, and
Yeah,
I just don't understand why we're spending on stuff like this that could clearly be.
Without a bandstand.
Yeah, I
no,
agree.
they can use it. It's
No, that
not
was a joke. That was a joke.
condemned. Oh, okay.
I'm bandstanding.
Without a band leader?
A little levity.
Just saying, I don't know why we have, it keeps coming up. We have a couple of these that just emerge, they bubble up, and like we're gonna forget.
There's another way to do this.
I'd like-
Through crowdsource online. I mean, people that love to use that would kick in $10,
So why don't we move it to 2024 for now? Get it off of this 2023 or,
Yep, I would definitely bring back those suggestions again, because this is something that is, we've talked about before. I would not vote for this in 2023.
So
but I
we'll-
do like the idea of a hard structure as opposed to, that I can kind of see that as being a good permanent solution to long-term. But right now, as Jeff said, we shouldn't be I mean, we have so many things going on.
So we'll
$50,000
recommend
is a lot.
be an FY '23 expense, that they look for alternative funding for it, and that push it off to FY '24 for the time being. Does that sound right?
I really like the idea of generating revenue from that bandstand and generating revenue from the one over at Bakersfield.
Well, I
Yeah, it's a
think-
great idea, but it's not pertinent to like we
No,
can't answer those
Right.
questions right now.
I think that's an issue that has to be taken up with the select board, and they have to be on board with that. And because I think there's lots of opportunities to generate revenue in both of those locations, and those are exactly the things we should be looking at. But that really is a directive that has to come from the select board.
So for FY '23, we're suggest that the feasibility study be put in the right bucket, wherever that may be, that it's not probably.
Operating.
The FY '24, $230,000, if I understood you right, Linda, that's like a placeholder. They're thinking they're gonna have to do a building at some point, but they want to do the feasibility study first.
On the transfer
correct?
station? Transfer station?
Yeah, the
So
equipment storage.
Yeah,
building.
the line F1 under 24, if I understood you correctly, they want to do the feasibility study first to get the right design, the right placement, the right flow, and then the building would potentially be built in the right place. So that's why it got pushed off to 24.
Yes,
So the
yes,
number and the timing are at this point speculative.
yes.
Okay.
We do have a building needs committee, and I think part of, again, part of the bigger picture when we get a new TA is every piece of town property that's owned needs to have a feasibility study with uses and revenue generation, and so we can get a good handle on what we're actually putting money into. And I think that that's a piece that, again, is missing as an overall something we can reference.
So Kathy, that's a good point, because when the conversation I had with Will, I asked him, do you know we have a buildings, and he was not aware of it. Not to say that, I don't think that
they've
people are
met in-
promoting it.
I was supposed to be the liaison for that, and I think I met two of them once 3 years ago.
There's only
but
two
that's-
people on it, Yeah.
That's something that needs to be a directive for the professionals to, kind of get that ship rated as well.
Well, so let me ask you a question. The DPW capital plan is very complicated, in part because there are items in later years that require items in, say, FY '23 to be accomplished or completed before we can even get to those next items. Would it make sense for us to say, unless someone has an issue with any of the other, well, the only other one that popped out at me was the $80,000 for AC. Is that a generic $80,000, or was that spec'd out and it really is $80,000? That would be line at the fire station, E3.
Three.
Has that gone to bid? I mean, is that a number that where they actually got a bid on it?
I think they have a proposal.
And so it's in the ballpark of 80,000.
I think that's what it is, yes,
Okay, so
yes.
if we think, and I guess I'm hearing that we sort of do, except for the feasibility study, that the requests for FY '23 are reasonable requests for the DPW to be working on. I haven't heard any significant objection to the projects that are slated for next year, or the capital equipment, the front end loader, which we approved last year, and the dump truck. I remember approving that. The Keller's Corner revetment has been out there for a couple of years. Would you be comfortable as a committee approving FY '23 and reserving our opinion on the ensuing years based on what happens in this coming year?
I thought we were moving the awning, the 50,000 to 2024.
Oh, yes, yes.
I
Okay,
have
so
a-
if we're gonna do that, I would move that.
I
Okay,
agree.
yes, yes. The
I
FY
just have a question about down at the transfer station. Where are we looking at the capital costs for putting in the sewer treatment for the building on Lawrence Road? That may not be in 2023, but
I don't think they have any proposals, so it's probably one of those ghosts that's out there that's gonna be pretty hefty, but I don't believe the housing authority has any concrete hard.
I think it's being, I'm not sure how much is being picked up by the developer and how much we're responsible for. It's just a hole that I don't see being addressed here.
Yeah, and I don't think, to Stephen's point, I don't believe it's addressable here. I don't think I don't think
But
there
it's
is
a good point. We should somebody should ask them, what year do we anticipate it? Because actually part of our job is to warn the public. So it should be in some year, but
Yeah, I'm not sure what, again, it was part of, I think, the deal for it was a 2-company deal with community development and an outside group that got the award. And I think that that's built into it, but I'd like to just see it covered from somewhere. This is where
That
we
would
get
be
back into
nice.
where does the revenue come from? And then, where are the costs going to?
So our liaison to the Affordable Housing Trust is Mo Barocas. I'll alert Mo to ask that question. Because I imagine they'd be the ones who would have the best information on where that project stands.
Outside that, I'm happy for you to take the motion for all the other stuff.
so moved.
So let's make sure we understand what we're moving here. We're recommending that the bandstand awning line H1 be pushed to FY '24. We are,
Feasibility study gets.
the feasibility study, F5, be moved to whatever the appropriate bucket is for a feasibility study, but taken out of the capital plan unless it belongs there. And we'll find out if it does, but we're assuming it does not. And that we are approving, or recommending rather, all of the other DPW projects, facilities and equipment for FY '23, and deferring or reserving our opinion on FY '24 to '27. Sound about right?
Perfect.
Okay. Anybody opposed to that? Linda, you okay with that?
I'm good.
Okay, then we'll go 7-0 on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. The only other department that is, well, the only other departments are the schools. There's the Wellfleet Elementary School and the Nauset region. I talked to Jim Nowak and Superintendent Clenchey at actually there are 2 others, but I'll get to the library in a moment. The region does not have a capital plan in place yet. It'll be a month or 2 before they do. So there's nothing for us to look at or vote on. As you would expect, Wellfleet gets a share of that, but doesn't pay the whole amount. It's a percentage based on our percentage of the school population. So stay tuned for that. The region always kind of brings up the rear on the budget stuff anyway, because they act a little bit later than everybody else does. On the elementary school budget, there are 2 numbers that kind of pop out, I think, pretty radically.
You mean the $25,000?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, there are 3. Replace the playground might get picked up by CPC. So that's out there, and it may not be a real number. So we can wait on that one, because I spoke to Mary Beth Rodman today, and they're in process of trying to get that funded. If you'll recall, last year we chose not to recommend the playground, line E, because we were in the middle of COVID. And I believe Kathy made a very cogent point. Will children be playing outside in the fall? Will kids go back to school? And what a prescient point that was. So hold off on worrying about the playground. It is a TBD at this point. On the $2 million fire suppression system, we're kind of in that rock and hard place. It is state mandated. They have to put in a fire suppression system. They should have done it when they built the building. They did
Yep.
not. And there you go. If you go back and look, in fact, if you look at the larger capital plan, it's still listed as being a $1.2 million item. How did it become a $2 million item? Well, it turns out they put it out to bid. And they got two bids, one for about 1.7 million and the other for 2.2. They averaged them out. In fact, if you hold on a second, I can even read the directive from Jim Nowak to Mary Beth. Move the fire suppression system to FY23 with an estimated cost of 2 million. My reasons are we did go out to bid last year and only received two at 1.693 million and 2.24800. Even though last year's plan for 1.2 million, the town never put it on the town warrant, so nothing has been appropriated at this time. All true. The 2 million is a made up number. What I would recommend, that we recommend, since it is a mandated thing, is that the school move heaven and earth to accept the lower bid unless those people don't know what they're doing and are clearly incompetent.
Well, don't they have to go with the lowest bid, or do they have to have like
I think they do, but I imagine if they're incompetent, they wouldn't have to. I mean, I'm assuming that there is some level of competence that has to be proved or experienced.
They have to go with, they have to go with the lowest bid unless it did not meet their bid requirements.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we
But-
ask for new bids? Can we put in a new RFP out? Because labor and people
Finance committee
coming
ask
out
for it?
and things like that may have changed the estimate. I don't know how old the estimates are, but if they're over 6 months old, there may be drastic changes.
I don't believe this note from Jim Nowak was October. I don't believe the estimates are over 6 months old.
October this, oh. darn.
Yes, October of this
Yeah,
year.
I think this is something we need to move on quickly, because if it, one more year and it's gonna be.
It'll- 0.5 million.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
I would guess the reason that they rounded to 2 million was for that exact reason, that by the time this happens, usually the bids will last somewhere between 90 days and 180 days. And so they rounded up based on the current market situation.
So
I don't
let's do something really fun. Why don't we say 2.5? Because if you don't use it all, at least they'll have, I mean, what happens if we chase these bid things and we don't have enough funding at town meeting? And them knowing that we're going to appropriate 2.5 is not going to affect their bidding process, but then, I mean, I know it sounds like a big chunk of money, but definitely, I mean, this is something that does have to get done. So you want to give them the line to go up to so they can get the bid that they need. So I would recommend increasing it to 2.5. But I could be alone on that, so that's okay.
Yeah, how we would recommend that. I mean, it's going to be a borrowing article anyway.
Anyway,
It's
yeah.
not like we're going to spend $2 million out of pocket. We're going to spend it over 30 years or 25 years.
Right.
Let's just
So-
go, let's just go with what they've got. I don't want to.
Okay.
I think we have to recommend that they go with the best possible bid. The exterior cladding in FY24, it went from 600 to 800,000. It's because there's no cladding. There's no shingles available. They're
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't get them, there's a shortage. and
Well,
they're all
I'll
like
read
in
Jim
color.
Nowak's comment. FY24 estimated cost of 800,000. The current siding is rough but hanging on. And at this time, no lumber yards have cedar shingles and most won't even take any more orders. And that was October 7th.
Yeah.
So this is a logistical problem for the schools, the school and potentially the DPW to some degree to solve. I think personally, I think for the same reason, we don't have any option but to say, sure, do the best you can and just say, yeah, we recommend. The only caveat I would say is that we strongly encourage them to find other funding for the playground, which it appears they're trying to do anyway.
I agree
So
with that.
candy bars.
Yeah.
When
So-
I remember doing that playground 21 years ago, and the PTA did it, and a bunch of dads and moms got together and put that whole thing together. So, I mean, 350, I looked at that, and I know we have talented people, and I think it's great when the kids volunteer their time for their own stuff. So, I mean, I know I'm old, sorry, I digress.
So there it is. I would entertain a motion to say we approve the elementary school's capital plan with the caveat that they go with the lowest possible bid on the suppression system, and reserve our opinion, or
Why do we have to comment? Why can't we just
Yes,
accept it?
Fred, what is it with the caveat thing, okay?
Well, because I don't think-
They have to go by the lowest bid anyway.
are
as
you comfortable
Jen
with the
pointed
playground
out.
being there?
I'm
Or-
not
or we
comfortable with the
recommend-
playground. I would reserve the playground since they're looking for other sources of funding. I wouldn't approve that until other sources are exhausted.
Well, that's the only
Right, but
caveat.
that's fiscal year 2024.
Exactly.
So we can identify that that we would prefer that one get alternative financing, but for the rest of
Okay, well,
it,
that's the caveat, Jeff. That's it.
Okay.
Well,
The whole
approve
caveat right there. in a
2023.
nutshell. It's like
Yeah.
we're gonna recommend, but we're gonna say we have some comments, and one of the comments is we think they should find other funding for the playground. We don't recommend it. Boom.
Done.
Okay.
So
Motion.
moved.
Second. All not in favor, please say nay. All right. Did I hear nay? Don't even
Yay.
try it. Yeah.
no, yay.
Oh, yay, okay. There is one other not on the list. It's the library. I spoke with Jennifer Workton because I know that at some point they were talking about doing a renovation to the library. She said, well, she had no capital items. That turned out there is one capital item. It's for FY25, and it is, hold on one second, I'll pull it up. It's for IT. It's basically replacing computers. It's for $30,000 in FY25, $10,000 in FY26, and $10,000 in FY27. The computers are very old, and she's holding off for another couple of years, pending a resolution of the town's finances to see what monies might be available for the library in general. I would recommend that we recommend it. It seems nominal, and there's nothing in FY23 anyway.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
and anyone nay? Okay, thank you. That is it for the capital improvement plan.
Thank
Yeah.
you for not running this meeting tomorrow night.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yes.
Fred.
You're welcome. There's one other thing on the agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at the document that I sent out earlier on the budget presentation guidelines for the TA? Jeff and I Jan worked it up.
I took a look at it. There's some things, I mean, do you really need to comment about, I know you used examples to show what you're talking about, like FY21 did this and that, but the final thing is not going to have all that stuff in it, right?
Correct. And
Okay.
I guess what I'm looking for, since we have a working group that's working with the TA on improving the budget presentation so that it's clearer and more financially oriented. The things that struck me when we looked at the older versions, because as you recall, we didn't get any of that last year. And then Chief Pauly said, well, go look 2 years back. We used to do an English language narrative. I went back and started looking at them. What was missing was the stuff that we highlighted in that document, which is where are the big changes financially? For example, and I'm not picking on you, Rich, but if you look at the fire department, there was one period where the cost of personnel, the A1 line went up it went up by 180,000 over the course of 2 years. And there was nothing in the budget presentation narrative that said, hey, we went up by 180,000. This is why, here's how we're planning on paying for it and so on. But there was a lot required of the department heads to put in a narrative about the department's mission and what they accomplished in the previous year and all. Good narrative, perfect for an appendix. All we're looking for, I think, is that in the negotiation between the department heads and the TA, that the most significant financial issues that affect the town in terms of what are they and how are they getting funded come to the front of the document. And that's really the whole goal. So that when we get the budget in late December, in addition to all the line items, there'll be a narrative that says, make a special case of looking at line A, A1, A5, whatever, where the department heads want us to pay attention to the real significant changes. We know that we don't have a lot of control over union negotiations or hiring and whatnot, and we never will, and it's not our job. But if we're going to review budgets, and especially for people on other boards and committees, perhaps we don't have financial acumen, the feeling is we'll have a much better conversation amongst us all if the most important elements of the budget are highlighted upfront in English rather than in numbers further down.
I like the pie chart. I thought that was cool.
I want to amplify something too about what Fred said, because we've just had, we're just coming out of a fiscal crisis, and we have this opportunity to do a reset. And I think that reset really is one where the finance committee can really put forth, this is what we need. It is obscene, and we've all said this over, that we in the past have never gotten the revenue side. I think it's really important, and one of our, ways of helping is in that connection between where the revenues are coming from and where the expenses are going to. And I think that just asking for the kind of information that Fred put in that, they can always say no, but it just seems like this is the time to reset what our role is and what information that the TA needs and the departments have to be providing to us. So
And
that's
the
my
advantage of
2 cents.
setting up guidelines like this too, is if we get a budget that doesn't fit our guideline, you can reject it and say, I'm sorry, you have to redo this because it doesn't fit our guideline. I
That's
would like
right.
to point out too, what I like looking at too is a 3-year past expenses in budgets, because that does help to see, predict trends. You can also, gives you a quick shot at how much they've increased over the past 3 years. So in the budget format itself, it would be nice to have that. And furthermore, on the water budget, I pointed this out too, that I want them on the revenue side of it, they should be including the base service fee feature. Even if it has zero balance in it, it's a revenue source for the town to look at, and it should be included in their budget when they present it to the finance committee. And it also should be in their budget when it's presented to town meeting.
So this thing that we put together is essentially a template. It's V.1. What I would like to ask of the committee is that between now, since there seems to be a general feeling that this is not a bad direction to go in, between now and our meeting in December, any suggestions you have for improving it in terms of the things you're talking about, whether it's a pie chart or whether it's specific revenue information, what do you want to see in the guidance to the TA and the department heads? Not every department head produces revenue, obviously, but the ones that do, I included a couple of sheets from past years that were summaries of, for example, the debt service requirements and revenues and whatnot. We have the charter responsibility. We have the assignment to give guidance to the TA and the department heads on how we want the budget presented. The generic here is going back to the book. Like we used to get the book with all the stuff, but there is a preamble to it. There's information we should have at the front end of that the TA should put together. And it'll dovetail, I think, with Charlie's attempt to put a forecast together as well. So between now and our next meeting, if you would just forward that to us, to the working group, we will incorporate it. We'll present it at the next meeting as the V.2, hopefully final version that we can then submit to Charlie and say, when you're putting the budgets together, please follow this format.
So Fred, really quick with my working group, where it dovetails with yours is that the Department of Revenue, I don't know if you guys caught that, but the Department of Revenue is working right now with Charlie, putting a revenue forecasting tool in place for Wellfleet that we have apparently, I don't believe we have ever used before. So once that's up and running and set, we'll be able to get tax rates set. So the forecasting tool is going to be based on, on that look back for revenue. So we'll be able to not only forecast for expenses, but we'll be able to match the revenues with them with some, and we'll be able to look at it and then decide how conservative or liberal we want to be with what we're, well, actually we can't really decide. The Department of Revenue is going to tell us what to do with that, but
Sure.
But, you know, so we are getting the tools in place to have a larger picture than we had before. So, and that dovetails in with making that presentable so people can understand it. So.
And by the way, Stephen, I totally agree with, well, both of you. I think having the backward look is important. And when they close FY 20 and 21, in theory, we'll at least have some kind of backward.
Something to look at, yeah.
Yeah, something. So for the next meeting, if you all could get something to us as quickly as you can think of it, we will incorporate it. And Stephen, you had mentioned wanting to set up another working group.
Well, yeah, it's just an idea. But wait, first, can we just email directly to you, or can we?
Yes, you can. Yes, you
okay.
can. As long as I
All
don't respond, as long as we don't have a conversation about it via email,
Okay.
there's no
So-
problem with open meeting.
Do you want it to
That's
go
why I
to
would-
you or to everyone who's on the working group, which is
Or you
basically
can-
Kathy
sure.
and Jeff?
Send it to Jeff and Jen as well. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And Jen.
Fine. Sure.
So yes, the next task force would be revenue producing opportunities for the town, but we
That's
could do that later.
You sales guy.
The motto is keep toking.
Yeah.
Or gumming. I gotta say that gummies are my choice. I see Chief Hurley there. Could I just ask really briefly before we adjourn? I hope you heard everything we just said. Is this something that is all right with you from a department head's perspective? That we're not creating a bar too high in terms of asking for information that would be difficult to get, or?
No, I think unfortunately last year, most of us provided that information, and through all the issues that we had,
Yeah,
it never got to you. We're just submitting stuff now. And I mean, for good or bad, years ago, Dan Hort had the line item and reason for the increase, decrease with an explanation like in a Word document. So you'll almost line by line see why we have increase and decreases, to the best of a 1-2 sentence fill-in, but
Yeah.
it was there last year. It just never got to you guys, I guess, is the way to say it. And I apologize. I was in the middle of a liquor hearing. I just want to thank Jeff for stopping by a few weeks ago, going over the Capitol. We are definitely having a supply chain issue when it comes to vehicles. We just heard again, it may be March, April, or May, and we ordered the vehicles in July. So we're now coming up on 3 full years of not replacing one vehicle. So right now, the youngest vehicle has about 70,000 miles, and the oldest has about 150. So we're kind of hitting critical mass here, but we'll try to kind of catch up the best we can.
Can't you do what they do in cop shows where you drive a hot car and you just put that flashing light on your roof?
Yeah.
I want to do that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so the next meeting, today, it was too late to put on the agenda, but there are 2 or 3 transfer requests, as I mentioned earlier from Charlie, that we need to vote on at the next meeting. Normally, I would say our next meeting would be December 22nd. But if we could do the 15th, I'm ecumenical about this. Do you have a feeling one way or the other?
15th is better than the 22nd.
15th.
All right, so we'll aim for the 15th then, okay?
Sounds good.
And the agenda will largely be going through the transfers, going through the final of the budgeting, formatting thing, any new ideas, and I don't think we're gonna have a whole lot more to review by then. We're waiting on stuff now, so there you go. This went a little longer than I thought. Thank you. We're getting it out ahead of 9 anyway. And we do have the whole capital improvement plan done. So I'll get the report out in the next couple of days. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it very much.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
Fred. Good
Everyone
job.
have
Thank you. Happy
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
You too. And motion to adjourn, anyone?
Motion adjourn.
Second.
Yay, okay.
Any
Stephen,
chance
are
you
you
could
still in
adjourn the
Boston?
select board meeting for?
Steven,
What?
are you still in Boston?
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next
East
week.
Boston.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next week.
Aye.
See you next
Bye,
week.
guys.